Representative McLain Delaney is fresh off the campaign trail after successfully defending her seat in the Democratic primary to represent Maryland's 6th district. And as she approaches the upcoming midterm, she's taking aim at the Trump administration for what she's calling a pattern of political retaliation and abuse of power. She's joining us live now to further explain that stance. Congresswoman, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good to have you with us. Let's begin with FEMA disaster aid. So one of your
Sure.
strongest condemnations that we've seen against the current administration is really what you've described as the punishing of blue states, even the politicizing of disaster aid, which actually directly impacted your constituents in Western Maryland. What evidence would you say supports those claims?
Well, it's really ridiculous. I believe that FEMA aid should be given out for disasters, irrespective of political party, zip code, or circumstance. We really need to make sure that all Americans have access to that and their taxpayer dollars pay for it. Last May, we had historic funding. Floods in Western Maryland and Westernport. And in fact, there was over $30 million worth of damage. The governor asked for FEMA aid. And what happened is Westernport, which is 3 miles away from West Virginia, the Westernport fire truck goes from Westernport, Maryland over to West Virginia for fires when they have a problem. West Virginia got their aid. We didn't get ours. And I think that we see it again and again, that whether it's infrastructure grants, whether it's talking about our bridge, whether it's talking about USDA funding, although we did get some USDA funds for our freezes, this administration is very, very focused on retribution and coming after our blue states. And it is just completely unacceptable.
In a nutshell,
and I'm highlighting it.
In a nutshell, what needs to change, if you were to say simply?
In a nutshell, I think we have to highlight, I think that we are pushing back, through the courts. I am talking to many of our different agency heads. I serve on ag. I personally highlighted this to Brooke Rollins in terms of our freezes, our freeze funds. I think that we have to have more, just a greater focus on the fact that the White House cannot politicize this type of funding. And I think there's a lot of backlash that is coming. So I think it's really public backlash that this is completely unacceptable.
Let's talk about immigration. One area where you have once sided with Republicans was immigration policy. So we saw you vote in favor of the passage of mandatory detention for undocumented non-citizens under the Laken Riley Act that became law last year. You later said you regretted the decision, and you have pushed back against detention centers being built in Washington County. But given the headlines of 2 recent deadly ICE encounters, calls to change ICE policy, what do you want voters to know about where you stand on these issues?
Well, first of all, I am a big proponent of our immigrants, their rights. And when I took the Laken Riley Act, it was my second week in, I don't even think Trump had sworn in yet. And so it was a different time in which I thought there was supposed to be some sort of due process hearing for people who had committed violent crimes and were here illegally. That said, ICE became something that was much different than under the Biden era. And I have become an incredibly strong proponent against the building of warehouses for our immigrants' rights, for due process, and for comprehensive immigration reform. For gosh sakes, we could do this tomorrow. But Congress must rein in out of control ICE agents and operations as more people are getting killed in the hands of federal agents, as we saw in Texas and Maine. And they have to have full and independent investigations and body cams.
So, Congressman, you've called for this, the body cameras. Also, we've heard the Trump administration say, they're going to try to rein in some of the traffic stops, the president fighting back against that just a bit. What else would you like to see in terms of accountability? And what ability does Congress have at this point to hold the administration accountable?
Well, obviously it's in appropriations and funding. I mean, this GOP keeps rubber stamping, giving more money as the average American family is struggling with gas, with energy, with groceries. We are seeing the rubber stamping of this administration of more and more funds for ICE operations. I think, $70 billion. And so what do? We cut back funding. Hopefully when we turn the House in November, we really put some brakes on a lot of this lawlessness. But the real solution is comprehensive immigration reform. And actually, there was a bipartisan bill on the table at the end of the Biden administration, and it could be done tomorrow. They have the White House, the House, the Senate, and there's a lot of appetite for it. We need it. Sure. We cannot have open borders, but we can have pathways to citizenship, Pathways for Our Dreamers, more tech visas, and more resources for our immigration backlog.
Maryland Congresswoman April McLain Delaney, I wish we had more time with you this morning, but nonetheless, we appreciate your time and the conversation. Thank you.
God bless you. Thanks so much.